how she used to buy toys for his dog, the type of car he drove, and oh, can't forget to mention that they slept together just a few months before this whole experiment started. I just thought I'd slip that in there. What is up, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. It's your girl Jada here, back with another video. So today we are going to be diving into a new season of Love is Blind, our favorite Netflix show. Yes, it's back. So we have a new season, new people, meaning more trouble, more drama, and boy, they did not skimp on that last part. Let's just get into some of the main characters. So for the guys, we have Jared, aka JP, Izzy, Milton, Chris, and Uche. And for the ladies, we have Aaliyah, Lydia, Stacy, Johnny, and Taylor. Now, don't get me wrong, the others definitely had a part to play in the very first episode and also in a little bit of the second, but besides that, after the couples became kind of close and a little bit more solidified, the others just kind of disappeared. You just did not see them, okay? Like they were either in the background or non-existent. So that's usually what happens on these Love is Blind seasons. So let's move into the first couple. So one of the first couples to hit it off was Taylor and JP. They seemed quite similar to each other, but Jared, or JP, I think I'm just gonna call him JP for the rest of the video, he did seem a little bit more on the quiet side, so I was kind of waiting for a goofy side to come out, but I never really saw it. I'm sure it's there, it'll probably just take some time. So in the back of my head, I was kind of wondering if Taylor was just going to get bored of him because of that, but he was really sweet, so I think that's ultimately what kind of won her over. But she does say yes to him, and when they met, it was super awkward when they met in person. They were both really quiet, but you could kind of still tell that they really liked each other, but just needed to break out of the quiet and really start talking to each other outside of the pods. You could tell that Taylor just was overthinking things a lot. But let's get right into the actual craziness. So Izzy, okay, the man of the hour. Izzy quickly became the favorite amongst quite a few of the ladies, and 3 of them to be exact, including Stacy, Johnny, and Lydia. Now, within just the first 2 episodes, he literally reminded me of Baptiste from season 3, if y'all remember him. Just kind of like that charming F-boy. I can't really say what the F stands for, but hopefully you know what I'm talking about. That's kind of the vibe I was getting. It was just super strong with Izzy. Lydia just wasn't really getting the hints that Izzy was just kind of falling away. And there was even a scene where Lydia had asked him something along the lines of, you know, if he had felt as connected to her as she felt to him. And in response, he says, uh-huh. Literally, that's what he says. Uh-huh. Not yes. Like he didn't try to sell it, nothing. You could tell he was mentally checked out of this whole process at that point. Like he was done, okay? And Lydia just kept talking. She did not pick up on that at all. I think that was one of Lydia's biggest problems, besides the sprinkle of delusion, of course. She was just talking way too much. She would go on and on if you let her. But Izzy breaks things off with Lydia, and Lydia, of course, runs crying to Aaliyah, and you could really see that they were getting close, which was kind of weird considering what we end up finding out later in the episodes. But regardless, Lydia runs back to Milton because he'd shown interest from the moment he met her, but she couldn't look past the fact that he was 24 and she was 30, which for me personally would be too wide of an age gap as well. But Milton did seem pretty mature for his age, but it was the age problem and also the fact that Lydia still had her head so far up Izzy's behind at the time. But now she wants Milton. It looked like it could work out until Lydia exposed something pretty crazy that we'll get into in just a minute, but let's put a pin in that for now and let's go back to Izzy. So after Izzy lets Lydia go, he continues things with Johnny and Stacy, and Johnny was also seeing Chris, and Chris thought he'd found the one and was seriously thinking about proposing to Johnny, but then Johnny cuts things off with him to pursue Izzy full-time. So Chris was brokenhearted, like crying and everything, and Johnny felt bad for maybe 2 seconds, and then it was like, well, you know, it is what it is. So in my opinion, I feel like she kind of pretended to care, but I just don't think deep down she actually gave 2 hoots. But we're just gonna move on. Johnny decided to take things up a notch by telling Izzy some more about her past, and she brings up the fact that a guy she was really in love with had a drug problem, so she broke things off with him, and soon after that she ended up getting married, but she wasn't really in love with this person that she was married to. So it was kind of like a rebound relationship turned into a marriage, and a little while into the marriage she was told that her previous boyfriend, who had the drug problem, or how she says it, the only man I've ever loved, had passed away, and unfortunately he passes away from a drug overdose. And Izzy had one of the weirdest reactions I could have possibly imagined to that information. Now, I understand that it was a lot for her to be married to someone that she didn't really love, but the fact that you had to literally stop talking to her to process what she said, yeah, I have to wonder if he could actually handle stressful stuff. It's just kind of like, if you could react that way to what she just said, it just makes me wonder if she actually was married to you, how you would handle crazier situations, you know? So Johnny, after getting this crazy reaction from Izzy based on what she said, she goes back to the girls and she says that she knows for a fact that if Izzy chose Stacy, that he would be making a pretty big mistake.
Not to be rude, I feel like if he chooses Stacy, he's gonna regret it.
And in that moment, I just saw the energy shift with Johnny, and it became kind of toxic, in my opinion. But after that conversation, Izzy had to take a step back from Johnny, and at first he was leaning more towards her because of how different her personality was from Stacy. He kind of saw Johnny as the better choice because she was a little bit calmer, a lot less high-strung, and a better fit as a wife. But Stacy was just kind of like the fun girl and not much more. But then Stacy started to show more of her emotional side and started talking about more deeper topics, and that was it for Izzy. That's all he knew, is that Johnny just had to go. So in this conversation that Izzy has with Johnny, Johnny is trying super hard to try and sell herself, and it was just so sad. It definitely came across as desperate because she kept saying things like, give me a chance and take a chance on me. And then she also said that she left Chris and stopped talking to him because she saw him as being super secure and basically boring, and also that she could envision exactly what her life would be like with him, and she knew she didn't want that because in her past she'd always chosen the safe guy and never really felt happy with them. So there was just so many red flags when it came to Johnny. So I wasn't really surprised that Izzy just decided to go with Stacy at the end of the day, but I do think that was a hasty decision as well. Regardless, Johnny decides to run back to Chris, and she ends up getting caught in a pretty big lie.
She said the thing for her in this whole experience was like not going what she was used to, and she said everyone who she dated always was a safe feeling, but she was never in love with them.
She literally told me basically the same thing, but opposite.
Chris decides to not pursue anything with her and just walk away from the situation. But there is an update on that, but I'll probably have to talk about that in another video. So let's dive into Uche and Aaliyah. Now, Uche and Aaliyah was probably the only couple that I was actually rooting for because I really felt that they were both pretty genuine and honest. But there was one point where Aaliyah came clean to Uche about her relationships and cheating in her most recent one about a year ago, I think she said, but she never actually told the ex. She just, cheated and just left afterwards. She didn't really tell him anything. And she said that it was because she had needs that weren't being fulfilled even after she had communicated that to this ex-boyfriend of hers at the time. So ultimately, because she wasn't being heard, she decided to cheat instead of just leaving the relationship. So Uche did not take that admission well, and he needed some time to process it, similar to Izzy, I guess. So Aaliyah left the conversation all emotional, and who does she turn to for comfort? Lydia, of course. Uche and Aaliyah talk again, and they do make it through this issue. However, there is a major problem that comes up, and it was the fact that he actually used to date someone who was in the pods along with them. And who was that person, you might ask? Yeah, well, none other than Lydia, of course. That's why I was making such a big deal about her in the first half of this video. It's just Aaliyah and Lydia, and the fact that it's now kind of like a triangle. She was kind of like Aaliyah's friend, confidant, comforter, and honestly, I'm sure when you guys saw that scene and heard that come out of Uche's mouth, that Lydia is the person he was actually dating, yeah, it really just came as a shock to me, especially when she kept going on and on about what his house looked like, how she used to buy toys for his dog, the type of car he drove, and oh, can't forget to mention that they slept together just a few months before this whole experiment started. I just thought I'd slip that in there. It became a bit too much for Aaliyah. Okay, that would have been way too much for me too, honey. I honestly would have had to speak to him about it. But yeah, that was a lot. So instead of actually talking to Uche though, because like I said, I would have had to speak to him. I could not walk away from that situation without talking to him. She decides to just walk away. Okay, she decides to just leave without saying anything to Uche. He is walking into the pods hoping to talk to her again, and she's not there. He's saying hello, hello for at least 2 minutes. No answer. Uche was literally on the verge of proposing. Okay, that's how serious that relationship had gotten. He was on the verge of proposing to Aaliyah, and she was just gone. Now, the producer had to be the one to call her and give Uche the phone for them to talk, and that's when Aaliyah told him about the little spat that she had with Lydia that made her want to leave ultimately. But it was like, girl, you really could have just stayed and told him all of this, because now you just look like someone who just abandons people when they're going through tough situations. So you just seem very unreliable in this moment. So Uche decides to end things, but Lydia ends up getting her man after Izzy decided to remove himself from the equation, and she kicked things off with Milton, but she did come clean about dating Uche, and that was something Milton needed a minute to take in and process, but he came back and he got over it and ended up proposing to Lydia. However, I do see a lot of red flags when it comes to Lydia, like major ones, and I just really think we'd probably have to talk about that in the next video. But in the end, there were 3 engaged couples in total: JP and Taylor, Izzy and Stacy, and Milton and Lydia. So in the next video, we'll be diving into the honeymoons and also a little bit of them moving in together. Now, y'all thought that the first couple of episodes were crazy. You have not seen anything yet, okay? It gets crazier. Okay. Like, I can't even begin to express. So y'all gonna definitely have to tune in for part 2. That's gonna be coming out soon. You're probably gonna see me in the same clothes because I had to talk about it as soon as I watch all these episodes, but I had to divide it up because it was just gonna be too much to squeeze into one video. Keep an eye out for that. But y'all let me know your thoughts on, you know, obviously the first couple of episodes down below in the comments, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.